jump into today's discussion. And I'm really excited to bring on Rob Liebrick, who's the president and CEO of Goodwin House, to talk about a unique program that they've developed there at Goodwin House called StrongerMemory. And Rob, I'm charged up that you're with us today. I've known you for years, but I know many in the audience may not be familiar with you or your background. Before we kind of jump into the discussion, give us a little bit of an overview of your career, and then tell us a little bit about Goodwin House in general and what that organization does.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Really grateful to be with you and all the folks at this webinar. I actually feel quite a bit like Maryland Relay being here with the StrongerMemory discussion. We're a free option for folks, a free service that no one knows about yet, but we're hoping to have 100,000 folks helped by that service over time. So thanks for helping us get the word out, Steve. Really appreciate that.
You bet.
As it relates to my journey and story, I grew up in Oregon, so I'm a Northwest native. Came out to this area, Washington, D.C. area for school, college. Spent 20 years in the area. Initially started off in telecommunications and almost a decade of telecommunication services. And while coming back from a trip, I ended up going back to Oregon, and it was to visit my grandmother, my dad's mom, who was sitting bedside. She was supposed to move into a senior living community the next day. And instead I ended up sitting bedside with her as she passed away. And for whatever reason, it prompted me to change my whole career and get into the service of older adults full time. And so I tried really hard to get a job in this field. At the time, it was not easy. People would look at me and say, hey, you're a telecommunications person. What are you doing? And marketing operations background. So I enrolled in Johns Hopkins at Johns Hopkins University. They had a program that was focused, an MBA focused on senior care and housing. It subsequently moved over to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, through the Erickson School. And I completed my education at Hopkins. I got my MBA, got exposed to a lot of great providers. I've worked for several of those that came and taught at that program, and have been in roles of marketing and sales, operations, and most recently having the chance to serve as CEO and president of Goodwin House. And Goodwin House is a fantastic organization. It's been around for over 50 years, based out of Northern Virginia. And why is it fantastic? I mean, I think a lot of people are enthusiastic about where they work, I hope at least. And if not, call me. But ultimately, for me, it's because it's a faith-based not-for-profit that has a really strong mission. It's got great people that are living that mission every day. It has a focus on innovation. And I think, the combination of mission orientation, great people, strong focus on innovation, keep on learning, keep on trying to do things. You're not always going to succeed. It's okay. Those are the hallmarks of a fantastic organization. I've been really blessed and fortunate to be a part of it.
I love it. I love your story. And it's something that we've talked a lot about. We've linked up with the various higher education organizations that have aging studies programs, Virginia Tech, UMBC, Hopkins, there's others. And it's one of you really speaks to the value of making a career change and reinventing yourself. And it's great to see the success and the ability that you had to sort of not give up when somebody looked at your resume and sort of said, oh, you don't carry this type of background. And now, folks that are in the other situation, you can follow in Rob's footsteps and do the same. And I have to say, I've been impressed with the innovation at Goodwin House. For those of you who weren't on our journey with these digital discussions, one of the best ones that we did early on in COVID was we visited the small house that's at Goodwin House. And if you're not familiar with the small house movement, it's this completely innovative concept of nursing homes that Goodwin House has. And definitely look it up. I'll try to drop the recording into chat for you to learn more about another Goodwin House program. But all right, well, Rob, that's great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duck behind the curtain here and allow you to share your PowerPoint. But while we do that, I want to remind the audience that if there's any questions that you have or comments that you have on anything that Rob is stating, just drop it into that little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there, and we'll make sure that we address these questions. And then, like I said, when Rob's done, we can have kind of an open Q&A where if you wanted to raise your hand, you could do that as well. So with that, Rob, take it away.
Great, Steve. I really appreciate it. And I would also say, just with the small house model, which is a very different way that nursing services are provided during the pandemic, really proved out around the country. Having a smaller, more intimate nursing experience really allowed less people to have negative outcomes. So another good reason to continue to innovate in our field for sure. One of the other elements of innovation for us is around brain health as an organization. And so, Goodwin House has 2 life plan communities. We have a hospice palliative care service. We have a certified home health operation. We've innovated. We have a private duty home care. Lots of elements. We have a Goodwin House at home element, so you don't have to move from your house to have the services we provide. So a lot of the factors going on within our organization. And we recognized one of our main strategic objectives and initiatives was around dementia and brain health as a whole. And that was in place before I arrived as CEO and president. And it was one of the reasons I was excited to be a part of this organization, because I have been on a journey with myself and my family for a number of years. And I remember starting back when I was just coming out of the program at Hopkins, and I was working for Brightview Senior Living and responsible for marketing and sales there. And I remember being engaged with a number of residents, and I was really excited about our field. And I would go around and I would ask people, I'd say, so, how did you want to live to 100? I was always enamored with seeing people or meeting people that were over 100. And so I'd go into audiences and expect that, everyone would want to live as long as possible. And I was always taken aback that when I asked that question, the vast majority of the people in the room did not raise their hands. And so I wanted to understand that more. And I asked with curiosity, why is that? Why are you not interested to be to 100? And there were 2 primary reasons that people would articulate. One was they were worried about running out of money. And certainly we can all understand that, and certainly planning for that, not wanting to be a burden on others around you. That's a big factor for a number of people, for sure. And the other reason that was consistent was that they were really concerned about not being healthy in the brain. They wanted to be around long enough, but they didn't want to be around too long where they might have challenges with their memory. And so two key reasons. And so this discussion today, our story, our journey today, Steve, is around a fight for brain health. And the fight really comes home for me because this is a very personal journey. This is about my mom. My mom, Wendy, lives in Oregon still. She has been married for 54 years, family, including 3 granddogs, which is great. And physically active, socially active, college graduate, as I mentioned here, all the factors that you'd want from a person who could successfully age. And yet we were running into some challenges. And this started in 2011. So in 2011, we found my mom was repeating her thoughts. She was forgetting her conversations. And certainly this was very frustrating, but really scary for my dad at the time. And then it moved beyond sort of this repeating and forgetting into a point where at one moment in time, she was driving and she had forgotten where she was going. So now she's in a car getting lost. And that really created a lot of fear and scared feelings. And at the time, we said, well, let's see. I was in service to older adults really since 2002. So I'm 9 years into my journey of service, and starting to think about my mom. Okay, all these things are happening. Is there something that I know, something that I can do about this? And so that's the journey that we're going to talk about today in Stronger Memory. Before we get into deep, I want to make sure that we're all talking about the same information. So we're ultimately going to be diving into the conversation around dementia, which is a combination of symptoms that really focus on a cognitive decline, a brain health decline. And so the number one known disease under the umbrella of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. So that's something for folks to hold on to as we continue into this story. But there are a lot of different dementias out there. In fact, during my time, I think I've heard folks talk about over 200 types of different dementias. And although Alzheimer's disease is the most prevalent, oftentimes people don't realize that they're combating or combining a number of different dementias all at once. So their brain is really not just single tracking in one area, which makes it more complicated to treat, candidly, and come around, especially given that there's no cure for it. So when you're treating it, it's just for the symptoms. Alzheimer's and other dementias, as we also have learned and know now, are not part of growing older. It's not normal. It may be, the prevalence may be high, but it's not a normal part. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen to everyone. However, as we age, the risk factors for Alzheimer's in particular do go up. And at the age of 85, and here was this conversation about, hey, how many of you want to live to 100? Now you start to understand if you want to retain your brain health, but now the percentage of chance continues to grow that you might have Alzheimer's or other dementias, we can understand the fear of people and what to do with that. This is a great chart sort of describing the path, sort of normal aging, where yes, everyone experiences challenges. And then you have the preclinical here. I love the statement towards the end where the patient knows, but the doctor doesn't, right? Most times people are smart enough to fake out their doctors, fake out people that they're around. And so they can get away with they know, but they can get away with it for a while because they're smart, they're intelligent. The intelligence doesn't go away, the wisdom doesn't go away. And then we get into this MCI. And as I said, I am from telecommunication, but this is not the old MCI. This is mild cognitive impairment. And so this is around this idea that, okay, now we've gone from, to now maybe other people around you are starting to sense it. And my mom had taken a test. We had the knowledge of her repeating and really felt like she was in this mild cognitive impairment zone. And unfortunately, over the course of 5 years, 38% of those that are in the mild cognitive impairment zone then move on into dementia areas. So that's within a 5-year period of time. And you have to recall, our journey started back in 2011. So certainly we're well beyond that 5-year marker as we're having this discussion. And then we want to just look, I know many of you are having lunch or just finished up, and I apologize for that. Hopefully this doesn't make you squirmish or squeamish, but the part I wanted to show here is that we're dealing with real disease. The brain actually does change physically when we go into Alzheimer's in particular. And so we lose about so much of the weight of the brain changes. There's a shrinkage of the areas for formations of new memories, the hippocampus. This is one of the areas that is it matures later in the brain. And so now we're getting into some challenges with these diseases impacting the ability to create new memories. And the cortex for thinking, planning, and remembering start to get challenged. And so now we're seeing that this is a real disease. We're really battling within this. And so if you have a real disease, how do we cure it? We're so used to trying to solve problems as a society, and we want to be able to solve this one too. So how do we do that? Unfortunately, there's no cure for Alzheimer's yet. And I think for a number of the dementias out there, there's a lot of work going on. And we're doing a great job today in certain areas. Vascular dementia, for example, people are often surprised to learn that we're decreasing the percentages of vascular dementia in this country. It's one of the top dementias, and it's around people being healthy. Doctors prescribing exercise or movement as the key to staying healthy. And people are really heeding those words, making sure that we're getting enough blood flow to the brain so that we can eliminate or decrease things like vascular dementia. So we're having success there, seeing smoking rates go down. Again, a helpful tool for us to prevent some dementias, but certainly not all dementias. And so specifically around Alzheimer's dementia, which is this progression of having your short-term memories first go, then your midterm memories also go, and then heading into longer-term memories, and then your capacities to even do basic activities all start to be challenged over time. This doctor's sentiment was, well, maybe we can't solve it, but could we prevent it? Prevent the symptoms from taking hold. And if we can prevent the symptoms from taking hold for someone who is 85, maybe we can push it off for 10 years for them, and they'll pass away from natural causes instead of having to endure the challenges of Alzheimer's disease. I was thinking about this just the other day with the pandemic in place and coming out of it now with the vaccination rates increasing throughout the country, and certainly older adults taking more advantage of the vaccination rates. We're seeing this growth of older adults. We're expected to double the number of older adults between now and 2040 within the country. And you'd say, well, that's fantastic for those of us that serve older adults. That's a good thing for us. We have more people to come around and serve. The challenge is that we don't have a whole lot of people to come and provide care. And so I was thinking about this just yesterday. Gosh, if you could hold off your symptoms of Alzheimer's dementia for 5 or 10 years, not only is it great for you from your family's perspective, from your ability to interact, but you also delay the need for hiring a caregiver, which is going to get harder and harder and harder in this country and actually throughout the world over the next 20 years. So it becomes a multifaceted reason, or more reasons to try to stave this off if we can. So this brings us to my mom, or back to my mom. Here I am 9 years in as an executive in senior living. I know that there's no cure for what she's going through, that the disease will progress over time. But is there anything that is out there that I can do or that we can do as a family? And it's a critical path. In 2012, I actually went to a Leading Age conference. Leading Age is the organization for not-for-profits that serve older adults in our country. They're actually headquartered based out of Washington, D.C., great organization. And they put on an annual conference. And in 2012, I went, and it was in Denver, and I was just walking around, and I actually didn't have a session that I was planning to go to. And I looked up and I found this session that I thought was pretty interesting. It was a program called SIDO from Japan. And it was a program that was taken in and translated basically in Japan. They've been working with folks in skilled nursing at the end of life with very severe dementia, dementias of different types. And they were finding that if they could just introduce 3 basic ideas, that they could help people stabilize their brain function and sometimes show improvement. Again, no cure for the disease, but at least symptomatically have improvement. And so this had been going on for 15 plus years in Japan at the time. And here was the first time that they were taking this program and translating it into the United States. And the first place was in Ohio with a skilled nursing location called Eliza Jennings. And they started to do their work, and they were reporting out about that work. And Dr. Kawashima and his team were instrumental in showing that with their program, which involved reading out loud, basic handwriting, and doing numeracy, math possibly, but numeracy, just understanding numbers, tying them to each other, that if you did that 5 times a week with people 20 to 30 minutes a day, that you could really help stabilize their brain functions. And people were seeing all kinds of amazing outcomes from this work. And so they did a study and they said, okay, well, let's get people involved and see if it we'll test them. We'll give them testing, cognitive testing before, we'll give them cognitive testing after. And you can actually see the research now start to play out that after a period of 6 months in assessment, that all the participants of the study turned out that they had cognitive impairment that was leveling off, or at least symptomatically, or improving. And for me, I don't know about you all, Steve, but that seems too good to be true, right? Now, everyone improved. And so I looked at the information, I listened to the speakers. I was so excited about this information that when that conference was over, I called them, the folks at Cyto, said, look, I want to do this right away for as many people as possible, because I think if it really helps everyone, let's roll this out. And they weren't in a position to do that at the time. And so I remember sitting there thinking, okay, here's a program that might really be good for a lot of folks. It seems to be working with those that are towards the end of life with really severe dementia. I wonder what would happen if we brought that upstream a little bit for those that weren't as cognitively impaired. Could you have the same kind of success? So we spent a good amount of time. I called my mom and said, Mom, I came back from a conference. I'm really excited for the information I took away. And I think I might have something for you, which would be helpful for your brain health. And she said, absolutely, I'm all game. Game for whatever you suggest, because I'm really scared and I want to be around to interact with my children, certainly you all, but also my grandchildren. We're just starting to have kids ourselves and my brother and sister. And she wanted to be a part of the family for the years coming. And so this is in 2012, and I looked around for curriculum to provide to my mom. That would be numeracy curriculum or easy math curriculum. One of the things that I took away from the reference at Cyto was that you had to keep things simple. And it wasn't really about getting the answer right. Don't worry about getting answers right, but keep things simple, low anxiety. And that has really been proven out with the work that we've done, keeping things low anxiety. And we couldn't find a math program that made sense. So we ended up, Cyto came from the same family organization that does Kumon learning, which is a test prep program that many folks may be familiar with in the country. And so we called them up and said, are you open to having someone join your first and second graders in their math? But she happens to be in her upper 60s. And so, this was the conversation with my mom. Mom, are you okay going in twice a week, at least once a week into Kumon and doing these math sheets and staying focused on it? And Steve, within a month of doing that work and starting to read out loud and handwriting, we saw improvement. Her repetition was going away. Her forgetfulness was not noticeable. And certainly we weren't having more episodes where she was getting lost altogether. So that's really exciting for me, for my family, certainly very, very helpful. And then recognizing when I was sharing the story with a good friend, Judy Wadsworth, who works for Aegis Living, which is a provider out of Seattle. I was talking with her about my mom's experience, and Judy said, Rob, this is great for your mom, but what are you going to do for more people? What are you going to do for our residents? And at the time, I was a part of an assisted living memory care community. And so I said, okay, let's see if we can create a curriculum. So we hired a lady who was just finishing up her doctorate as an occupational therapist. She had done teaching abroad, Helen Halpern, and she helped me and us create a program that seems really simple, and it is, except when you start to get into the details of what font should you use and how should things be positioned. So she really helped us understand what curriculum might be most helpful from a therapeutic standpoint with residents. And we rolled out or created a program called Aegis Brain Level Engagement, or ABLE. And we rolled that out, and we had about 20 residents get involved with it. And right away, again, within the earliest was within a week, some were 2 weeks, but within a month for certain, we saw the folks that were engaged in that program and were steady with it 4 to 5 times a week at least. We saw the improvements in behaviors. We saw the improvements in recall. We saw one gentleman whose sister was his primary care provider, and he could not remember her name. All of a sudden, he had better recall around her name. We had not changed anything else in his life other than being in our community and having this program. We had residents that weren't sleeping well that all of a sudden started to sleep better. Residents that weren't eating well started to eat better. And so it seemed to have this really fascinating effect. Engaging a certain part of the brain seemed to have this fascinating effect on other parts of the brain. We, as a family, moved back to Maryland from in 2000. Later in 2000, a few years ago, now 5 years ago, and started to work in this market area. And knew things were going on with Aegis, and they were still working on the program, but didn't really materialize for a few years. And sitting on it, thought again, gosh, now we've helped my mom and we've helped other residents, but how do we help a broader audience? And so spent a couple of years creating curriculum, just at night, building it, and over time delivered StrongerMemory for Goodwin House. Donated that to Goodwin House in 2019. And in 2020, we actually posted the entire curriculum online, made it free and available to everyone. It still is free and available to everyone, and will hopefully always be free and available to everyone. So we created that, put that online, and we started to engage Linda Latiana, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Goodwin House. She's an amazing person. She also has a social work background, came and said, okay, let's start doing some trials of StrongerMemory. So she and I did trial programs at Goodwin House, Alexandria, Goodwin House, Bayless Crossroads. This was in January of 2020. We continued those through April of 2020. And of course, we all recognize that in March, our whole world was impacted by the pandemic. And so those were in-person meetups. We would meet with people once a week. We would have material for them, curriculum for them, and we would get a lot of great feedback from them. From that experience, we also have a program, as I referenced earlier, called Goodwin House at Home. We have close to 200 members, most of whom live in the Northern Virginia, DC area, and they still live in their homes. And our team was asking, well, how can we engage that group now that we have this pandemic around us? Is there a way to engage that group with curriculum or programming that we already have in place? And we said, why don't we roll out StrongerMemory? And so we offered that up to our Goodwin House at Home members. At the time, about 60 folks thought it might be interesting. And we ended up with a group of 20 folks dedicated to the program. And that became a real test bed for us between the groups that we had at Goodwin House Alexandria and Goodwin House Bayless Crossroads, and now Goodwin House at Home. We had enough people that we could start to actually do a little bit of research. We did pre-testing, post-testing, again, on cognitive abilities to see where people are at. And we started to get a lot of good anecdotal information about the impact, the positive impact of StrongerMemory, to the point where we were able to bring George Mason University in, and they were enthusiastic to engage with us. And so they just came out with a initial report in March of 2021. And so we're really excited for where we're headed with this program. And that's what StrongerMemory is about. How do we help as many people as possible trigger their working memory to try to get to the same benefits that we've seen folks in the Goodwin House programs experience. And oftentimes, Steve will have people ask the question, gosh, I've been doing the program for a while. I'm not seeing any decrease or decline, but I'm not necessarily certain I'm seeing a lot of improvement. The win here is to prevent the decline. And then for a number of other folks, they're absolutely seeing the engagement, the focus, the ability to recall all improve. And so you get this, Dr. Emily came in, again, they were enthusiastic about their support of the program. And we went on to say, okay, well, how do we start sharing this beyond just Goodwin House? How do we share this beyond just Northern Virginia? Grateful to connect with the Village to Village Network, which I think Barbara is on with us today, 350 odd groups throughout the country. And so we said to them, let's roll this out for your membership and see if we can positively impact the lives of more and more people. And so that's the journey we're on together. We've got a national launch now with that relationship. We're starting to see a number of folks come, and we have a pretty bold goal, a very bold goal, but I'll tell you why the goal is bold through the next couple of slides. One is we're talking about something that's very simple. We're talking about something that is non-pharmacological. So there's no drugs involved. There's no downside to this program or the effort that we're putting forward for folks, but there are lots of potential upsides. And a lot of times people will say, well, how does it work? And Dr. Kawashima early on had done some brain scans, and he showed that if you have a brain in idle thought versus a brain reading out loud, you can see how much more engagement you get from a brain that is reading out loud. Similarly, when you are doing math problems, not difficult math problems, but quick math problems, you can see the brain gets engaged in certain ways with quick math problems. But the brain really gets engaged when you do simple math problems quickly. And so this concept, this simple concept, was really powerful for us. And in fact, what I experienced with my mom, who's now been involved in doing these things, handwriting, reading out loud, quick math done, simple math done quickly, for now 9 years. A couple of years ago, Steve, we had a call and she said, Rob, it's not working anymore. My brain is not working anymore. I'm really worried. And so I went through, as a good son, I went through all the things like, are you sleeping okay? Because sleep is a big factor. How are you doing on eating? Are you still exercising? Are there any other things that have changed? Nothing had changed. I said, Mom, tell me, what about your math? Tell me about what kind of math you're doing right now. Oh, I'm working on division, and it's really causing a lot of anxiety. It's really frustrating. I'm not getting the problems right. And I said, okay, do me a favor. Go back to really simple math, basic adding, addition. If you want to do subtraction, fine. But go back to the basics and see if that doesn't make a difference. Within a week for her, things reverted back to our new normal, which was a positive thing. Very, very good. Not repeating yourself, not forgetting. And so that's what we've created, a curriculum for older adults that allows them to do simple math quickly. And some people will say, well, gosh, it's so simple. And the goal for this, oftentimes we'll talk about, or people will hear about, brain elasticity, and the ability of the brain to take in more information. And then that's really important, and to try new things and to expand. That's helpful. And certainly I'm not a doctor. I would never turn down those ideas. But I would also say that an intentional focus on connecting the brain to material that was embedded in first grade and second grade also seems to show a really positive result for folks. So that's what we're focused on. We're not even focused on getting the answers right. Although I'll have to say for my mom, she really does. She's very competitive. So she wants to know, is everything right? But our job is to try to keep the anxiety low. So we encourage people to time themselves going through the sheets. If it's too easy going horizontal, choose vertical. You can mix and match and change. And there are 16 stages of different math material and problems. So it gets progressively harder in different different elements, certainly. And if people are repeating the same math problems, doing them again a few months later, no problem. The goal is just to engage the brain in the simple exercise consistently. And then with writing prompts, we are encouraging folks to handwrite. Certainly people, my mom, for example, she journals. She has a diary. That's how she goes about it. We also felt like a lot of people would be fine just journaling themselves, but some people need a little bit of prompting. So we've established, over 150 different prompts for folks to think about. And what we were pleasantly surprised to find with this is that the couples in particular were able to engage with themselves in a way that feedback we got, in a way that they hadn't done in years, that they were asking these questions, writing about them, and now having a really deep conversation about them, and spending much more time than the 20 or 30 minutes that may be allocated in total. And so really finding that lovely. And now we're able to provide a way for people to have something that they can give to others. Oh, I wrote about this today, about a trip that I was thinking about years ago. Now they can share that with their family and friends. So it's got multiple ways of being beneficial, but very, very, very helpful for reconnecting. And ultimately, for your participants, Steve, what we're hoping to do is really get the word out. We want to thank all the work that you've done over the years, for sure. And if there are people in the audience that have an interest around Stronger Memory, we would like them to go ahead, log on to our Goodwin House website. There's a whole section on Stronger Memory. They can participate in this. As I said, we're making it available for free. We've done that because people have donated resources to our foundation. And we want to encourage people to continue to do that if they like this kind of program, to help us to grow it throughout the country, throughout the world. But people can find the whole program complimentary on our website. And folks can, if they need, we have a whole facilitators guide that we've developed with the help of the Village to Village Network to be able to come around and run your own sessions. We think that not only the curriculum is important, but actually having a group come together at least once a week, keeping people accountable really, really helps build on momentum. And that's our goal, is to create and keep that momentum going, with our ultimate goal to help 100,000 people with their brain health between now and 2023.
Wow, this is great. Really good overview there, Rob. And it's always great to see inspiration from a personal story take hold, and then be able to spread that knowledge to hundreds, if not thousands. So this is real exciting. And we've got some questions that have come in so I'm just going to jump into those, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and I think actually, Steve, we also might have a participant, Mary Busey, who might be great to provide a little
I
bit
love Mary. Let me just
but I don't know if she's around, but if she is,
okay.
she'd be a great person to touch base with.
Mary, if you're open to sharing how this program has helped with you, raise your virtual hand, and I will, that's that little yellow hand at the bottom of the screen. There she is. Okay, she's given us permission. So I'm going to allow Mary to talk here. So I think you can unmute, and there you go. Hey, Mary.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. So I understand you've participated in the Stronger Memory program. Would you like to share how you got involved and how it's worked for you?
Well, when Goodwin House reached out to me, I was sure they had the wrong person, but there's some pretty persuasive people over there. So I think I'm going to start with something off base. Life can be so ironic because we remember things we'd rather forget, and we can't remember what we want to remember. This memory came back to me as I was preparing to be on here. When I was in the second grade, the teacher called me to the front of the room to speak from the front of the room. I have no idea what it was about or why. I have such a vivid memory. I can see myself like it was yesterday. Stop fiddling with your skirt. And I think that may be the origin of my fear of public speaking. I suspect they picked me because I talk a lot, but I'm not comfortable in front of an audience. So I have decided that in my second childhood, it's time to bury that memory. So here I am with my notes to try to keep me on track. But
I love it.
stirred up a whole lot more memory, more thoughts. So back to the real topic. Signing up for this program was a no-brainer. My mother was one of 10 surviving children. Of those that lived into their 80s, all but one had some form of senility. And the quote at the beginning of this, I'd never seen in writing, but it's the words right out of my mouth. The thing that scares me the worst is to live a long time with no mind. And so with that family history, joining up was a no-brainer. As an aside, the only one of those siblings who did not have senility when she died at age 90 read a lot and had been in a long-term walking for exercise program. I do both of those. But here I'm digressing already. I could read a book and enjoy it, and I might be able to tell you the title. I could tell you what it was about in very few details when I started this program. So of course I signed up, no brainer. I did the program as specified for the first, I don't know, was it 8 weeks, I think? It was the trial period. And then we had a meeting with Rob, a check-in. He wanted to know how we were doing and so on. And I told him I hated the math portion because I was bored silly. I could write the answers. I was not going to improve speed because I could write them faster than I couldn't write fast enough. See, I told you I was nervous. So I expected to be told, well, you got to do it the way it's written. Mom said, just keep doing what you can. So again, I thought you got the wrong person because I don't work the program the way it's specified. What I began to do was to continue to read my books or sometimes a newspaper article or whatever for 15 minutes, and then write as many details as I can remember from what I just read. And it has been amazing. It has just been amazing. Checking my notes. Can't read my own scribble. So,
and Mary, just your connection to Goodwin House is you're one of the Goodwin House at Home members, correct?
I am a Goodwin House at Home member.
Just as an aside, because that's an interesting program, can you just give a quick overview of what that means? Like as a Goodwin House at Home member, what is that? What are some of the benefits?
The benefits?
Yeah.
Well, maybe if I tell you how I got there, you will understand the benefit.
Okay.
I had been inquiring about Goodwin House at Home. I had the paperwork on my desk. I was close to signing up when I found myself in ICU for 5 days with sepsis. Came very close to pushing up daisies. I live alone. I have no family here to support me emotionally or otherwise. And believe me, I signed up the minute I was able. The next summer, I broke my wrist. Goodwin House, I didn't have to worry about how I was going to get to my doctor's appointments. Everything is taken care of. So I don't really, I'm physically fit, which is one of the fears. I have good health, I'm physically fit. So this body could live a long time with no brain. I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. So the real benefit is the peace of mind of knowing that if something like that happens to me again, I don't have to worry about how I'm going to get home from the hospital, how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that. I have the peace of mind. I sleep better. It's not expensive, but it is worth every penny. Every penny. I love it.
That's great.
Anything else? Do you want
No,
to?
I think that it's just, I love it when we have programs on here and then we have an actual user. It makes it more authentic. And Betty, or Mary, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a question from Betty. Mary,
You're doing that to make me feel better, Steve.
and you're a wonderful public speaker. And so even though the good thing is we don't have the camera on, so we can't see you fidgeting with your dress. So
I don't wear dresses anymore.
no, I'm
So-
teasing. This has been
so-
great.
Back to my notes. So I do this because it's working, not because it's fun. It's homework,
Mhm.
but I have evidence that it's working. At least I think I do. I started testing myself the next day and days after about what can I remember.
Mhm.
Now I have to tell you, I'm in book clubs where people can almost open the book and turn to the page where not me, but I'm finding that I can remember some details even days later. I'm remembering names. I go downstairs, and in the old days, well, why did I come down here? And I'd have to go back upstairs to figure out why I went downstairs. I can figure it out more frequently. I mean, it seems like it's not dramatic because some of these changes for me are what's normal for other people, but it hasn't been normal for me for a long time.
Mhm.
So what my hope is, because this really has kind of taken some of the fun out of the reading. You know, I'm not just skimming over it, but I love learning new things. I took a swimming, what did they call it? It was really geared to improving your strokes. For a while, I couldn't swim either way, the old way or the new way. And now I just swim again, incorporating the newer strokes, the newer body positions. So my hope is that eventually I'll be able to read for pleasure and it won't feel like homework. But I was thinking, what are the advantages? For one thing, you use the skills we already have, we already know. As a senior citizen, I'm an octogenarian. I didn't grow up with technology. I do it pretty well for my age and experience, but I'm too slow for those online teaching things. I don't play games, so I don't react to them. They don't work. I tried using it when I was taking a foreign language 20 years ago, and it didn't work. You can do this anytime, any place. I don't need any materials. I can have a magazine and read it and write what I remember from it. It spills over into all of my life, it seems, and it's free. That, it means it's available to anybody and everybody.
That's
So
great.
lastly, I said I was going to talk for 4 minutes. I think I'm over my time.
You've done a great job and
So
really,
this morning, I told you I like to talk.
yeah,
This
no, that's great.
morning, I walk every morning. This morning, this young man went by with his dog, and I recognized the dog, and he was very kind because he came up and he introduced himself and his dog again, because I knew I'd talked to him before, but that's all I remembered. Guess what, honey bunches? His name is Chris and his dog is Archie.
That's great.
So is it working? I've talked to this man several times over the years. And I have met 3 other people in the past few weeks, and I can tell you their name. I can tell you, I worked in retail sales, and how I ever succeeded, I don't know, because names just.
Oh,
So
this is
I am so excited about this. I tell other people, if you know anybody who's interested, there's no concrete proof. Lastly, I'll say, we will never know whether I would have been senile, but knowing how it's changing my life now is what's keeping me motivated.
I love it.
Thanks for listening, friends. I'm glad I can't see myself.
Yeah, no, this is great. Excellent. So thanks a lot, Mary. And let's see, I am going to now, we'll get to these questions here. And Miriam has her hand raised. Sometimes people raise their hand by mistake, but Miriam, if you did have a question, I've asked you to unmute. You're lowering your hand, so you answered that question. So we are good to go. So let's get to some of these questions that came in. So Janet Grit says, at what point do people with mild cognitive decline progress more, having moderate disabilities or worse, that makes it unsafe to live alone? Can you provide any key symptoms or behaviors that signal the need for some level of assisted living? And again, I know this is a little bit off topic,
Sure.
to stronger memory, but any thoughts that you might share on that, Rob? But also, I would go to our audience. If anybody in the audience has some thoughts on Janet's question, which I'll cut and paste into chat, by all means, we're a community that can help each other here.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks for the question from Janet. So, and thanks, Mary. I'm so excited for the work and the progress that you're making, and thanks for sharing your feedback and your journey, your story. As it relates to mild cognitive impairment, and when it's time to take more definitive action, find resources of support or have a community around that person. Oftentimes we talk about when you go from being able to live your life, maybe with some challenges, but you can still go through your daily regimen. And for my mom, for example, she was able to do everything just fine until that one day where she was forgetful about where she was driving. That started to become a real worry and real concern. And so now you're talking about safety issues. So if you ever come upon a safety issue like that, it's really important to get more support, more help. And then it's around the what we call activities of daily living. Typically, are people able to get the food and the nourishment they need, get bathed, clothed, interact socially with other folks in a reasonable fashion, day in and day out. If not, those folks that are not doing that well are the first to know that they're not doing it well most of the time, or their family members around them. And then it would be time to reach out, make a phone call. I know for us at Goodwin House, our philosophy is you don't have to move to us. You don't have to have any services from us. If you need support and we're here for you, give us a call. We'll walk through your situation and provide you a path to travel. And that's really important for all of us who serve older adults in our field. We're all here to be guides and help.
That's great. Let's see. Betty asks, can people with low vision or blindness use the program?
Yes. Folks with low vision, blindness can and do use the program. It depends on where your vision's at, but we have intentionally created the curriculum for larger print purposes. And then people have, even if they're not able to read the material for the math problems, for example, they may have someone help guide them through that, and they may be asking them verbally what the math might be. Betty, can you tell me what 1 + 1 is? Okay, great job. And again, by the way, whatever the answer is, it's great job is the answer of the person given those questions. And then you can keep on going on. So depending upon where the person is in their low vision journey, they certainly can utilize this program. And if they can find any of those elements to read out loud, to do handwriting, to do basic math quickly, ideally you want to have the combination of the three, but we have folks that are using the program that are choosing not to do a part and choosing to do other parts for 20 to 30 minutes a day. So it has a lot of variability in that regard, or flexibility in that regard.
Great. And next month, we're going to have the Northern Virginia Low Vision Center featured on one of our discussions. And one of the things about, if any of you have sort of what we've been featuring with Maryland Relay with hearing impairment, there are so many resources out there to help people with low vision communicate and participate in programs like this, technology and tools. Let's see. Mindy Mitchell asks, do you need to write in longhand or can you use a computer or a journal?
Yeah, so if you're writing, handwriting is the key. Typing is not as effective. Another report just came out a couple months ago, and we were just having this discussion. We had a group of 20 residents that are actively doing this at Goodwin House, Alexandria, and Jessica Frederickson, who is our brand new brain health program manager, fantastic person, wonderful spirit, and is really at the core of the work we're doing right now with rolling this out nationwide. She talked about the idea that when you're doing keystrokes, that you're just doing the same action each time. Your fingers aren't really doing a whole lot of different things other than a keystroke. Whereas you're doing handwriting, you have much more variability and variety going on with the brain and engagement. And the same thing was proved out in Japan recently. They just reaffirmed that handwriting is the ideal.
Great. And then this didn't surprise me when we brought up that Mary was a member of Goodwin House at Home, but we have a couple of questions. Ellen Pincus, do you have to live at Goodwin House to join Goodwin House at Home? What is the cost? And then let's see, Goodwin House at Home program. So how does one help a family member learn how to be considered for part of this program? Rob, for both of those questions, I dropped in Katie Ramos's contact information.
Perfect.
So in chat, but Rob, maybe just a quick overview of Goodwin House at Home and how that works, and answering the question. You don't have to live there at Goodwin House.
Yeah. Goodwin House at Home is a program for folks that are actually living. Most of the folks that are part of that program live in their own homes. It's available now in Northern Virginia and now in Washington, D.C. We just received approval for that not too long ago. And what it allows us to do is for someone to have a single point of care or a coordinator come around them. And so just like Mary talked about, gosh, you find yourself in a health concern, who comes around you, who advocates for you, who helps you navigate those waters. We'll do that for you through that program. There is an initial entrance fee, if you will, or a buy-in. It's very different and much lower than you would pay for moving into a community like a continuing lifestyle community like Goodwin House. And then there is a monthly fee associated with it, but it's really around a preventative tool for folks who want the peace of mind of having great care and support, but don't necessarily want to move out of their home. And so that's what Goodwin House at Home provides.
Great. Well, I'm looking at the clock here, and it's after 1 o'clock. We've gone over an hour, and we usually like to kind of wrap things up in an hour or so. But by no surprise, this was another engaging and interactive discussion. Rob, thank you for what you're doing. I love the fact that you're creating things and just offering them to the community for free, which I think is a great model. And to the audience, we couldn't do this without you. It's amazing that the thought-provoking questions that you all ask, and most of all, really glad Mary jumped in there, because having somebody that's part of a program sharing in these discussions really makes them even better. So with that, I think we'll close things out. Rob, did you have any final closing words? And we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So grateful to all those who have been a part of this program to date, very much so for all those who've given it a try, George Mason University in particular, Village to Village Network, and Steve, for you to help us get the word out. As I said, a free program, it's complimentary for a reason. We want to help as many people as possible. If people want to use this curriculum in any form or fashion, we'll welcome that. If they want to add to it, great, let us know. And let's go help 100,000 or more people. And why 100,000, Steve? It's 1% of the estimated 10 million people in the country that are impacted by mild cognitive impairment. So we're just trying to reach 1%, but gosh, it would be fantastic to reach 100% of those folks if we can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much. And we'll be talking to you and talking to everybody a little bit later.
Thanks again.